What is up and welcome back. We are your Emerald Coast relocation team, and today what we're going to be talking about is whether or not Fort Walton Beach is going to be the next Destin. Now, we actually did a video similar to this comparing Navarre Beach over to Destin. I know a lot of you who are locals here like, there's no way Navarre Beach cannot become the next Destin, so why not Fort Walton Beach? We're going to discuss that a little bit. First of all, we go into that population. So the population of Fort Walton Beach is almost 21,000 people, and then over in Destin you've got almost 14,000 people.
All right, let's talk about location, just to get a kind of an idea of how far is it when we're comparing these two cities. If you're looking at Fort Walton, you're gonna go over the beach over into Okaloosa, and then you're gonna go down the long strip with the seashore, and then go over another bridge into Destin. It's actually only 17 minutes. So if you are looking at the map, it's a little deceiving, but actually very close. So when we're comparing these two cities, you would think that overflow from Destin really comes into this Fort Walton area, and in this video you're going to find out exactly how we feel on if that's true or not. Yep. The first topic that we're going to be covering today is going to be cost of living between the two, and then compared to Florida overall.
When we are talking about that cost of living, what we use is the cost of living index off of bestliving.org.net. I always I always confuse that one right there. But so your overall number, we're talking about 100 is your national average. If it's above that, it's more expensive than your national average. If it's below that, then it's cheaper than your national average. Overall, Fort Walton Beach is a 100.9, where Destin's actually comes in the exact same number at a 100.9. Looking at that number, you'd be like, all right, cool, a lot of the cost of living must be similar, right? There's actually only two other variables that are the same as over in Destin. You're looking at your health, which is a 104.2 in both Fort Walton Beach and Destin, and then also your utilities, which is a 103.4 in Fort Walton Beach and Destin. This makes sense. This means that both of these cities share similar utilities, share the same healthcare facilities. That would make sense, but this overall number is skewed in a few different areas.
All right, let's talk about the two that are barely skewed, and then we'll get into the last one, which really will drive the difference between the two cities. Transportation over in Fort Walton comes in at a 90.1, where over in Destin it comes at a 93.3. So there is a slight difference between the two cities, even being only 17 minutes apart. The other one is going to be that miscellaneous. Those miscellaneous categories kind of cover your restaurants, your shopping, things like that. That makes a little bit of sense as to why Destin would be more. Fort Walton comes in at a 105.9, whereas Destin comes in at 106.3. So again, not very different. So what's the big change, which is why if you're looking at that overall, it does not make sense, is going to be, of course, those housing prices. Before I tell you the actual number though, please note that this does have rentals as well factored into this housing. This is not just housing alone. Keep in mind that when we are covering this number right here, this is actually going to incorporate in those rental costs as well as the real estate. Don't worry, we will cover the real estate. Peter's gonna come in and give you all the numbers, but you're gonna have to wait till the next bullet. Let's cover this number right here, which is including both of those categories. In Fort Walton, it's a 95.6, and Destin comes in at 168.1, which is the huge difference. How it's factored in that they are the same overall blows my mind, because the housing with rental and real estate combined is so much higher in Destin than Fort Walton. Oh, hey! This is not a blooper. I'm actually just popping in real quick to let you know that we have a team of licensed real estate agents here in the Emerald Coast. So if you are looking to call this your new home, please do us a favor. Call that number down below or hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, hit that notification bell so you're notified every single time we put out a new video. I mean, look at the views. All right, let's get back to the video.
Another one that we did not mention is your groceries, which this one actually makes sense. So in Fort Walton Beach, your groceries is gonna be a 100.2, where over in Destin, it's a 105.3. This makes sense. Destin is a top tourist spot. With that, your grocery stores are going to be charging a little bit more with that food and groceries.
Now, I will say too, on this number, it doesn't seem like a lot when you're looking from 100 to 105. However, if we have done a ton of cost of living differences, and grocery is one that actually doesn't jump that much. So 100 to 105 is actually a very big difference when looking at this grocery category. All right, now since we already told you that real estate is the major difference between these two cities, I'm sure you want that broken down a little bit if you are looking to call this area your new home. So Peter's gonna be covering the real estate side between the two cities.
Now, a quick note when I am covering this is the median sales price, and it's gonna be combining both your attached and your detached products into one number. So just keep that in mind, that this is, if we're talking about townhouses, and condos and row homes, this is also gonna be your single family homes. So if we're looking at that median sales price over in Fort Walton Beach, you're looking at a median sales price of $364,000. If we break over into Destin, you've got a huge jump, looking at a median sales price of $620,000. $4,000. Obviously, with Destin being that top destination spot that it is, you are going to have a lot of those rental properties or even higher class properties over in Destin. That's why that median sales price is going to be so much higher.
Now, don't be deceived, because when we are looking at these median sales prices, obviously you're going to get a higher product if you're anywhere near that water. So if you're along the Sound, whether you're coming from Mary Esther down as you enter in, or if you are on the other side after you pass over the bridge, you are going to start seeing those high price homes as close to the water as you can get.
All right, so when we are talking about this real estate, whether or not Fort Walton Beach is going to be the next Destin, what are the real estate prices looking like? Is it becoming more popular? A lot of times when you have a city that is becoming more popular, that's why those real estate prices are going up, supply and demand, right? And so if we're looking over the last 12 months, Fort Walton Beach is up 10.3%. If we look back 24 months, it's only up 5.51%. It's crazy to think that that percentage has rose over the last 12 months as compared to the last 24 months.
All right, we have covered kind of the cost of living differences. We also talked about housing and how much we're seeing Fort Walton Beach become a little bit more popular, especially over the last 12 months. Let's talk a little bit about the third topic, which is, are people moving into Fort Walton or out of Fort Walton more? This is something I geeked out on to look at, like, where are people actually going to? So if they are moving out of Fort Walton, 3 of the 4 cities that they are moving out to are still actually in the state of Florida, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
The number 1 place people are moving out of when leaving Fort Walton Beach is going to be Pensacola. The second city that they're moving to is Panama City.
Yeah.
And then the third was actually in North Carolina. The fourth was Palm Bay, Florida. So it's interesting to see that even though they are moving out of this city, they are not necessarily moving out of Florida. Now, if you are going to be looking at where are people coming from, the top 3 cities that people are moving from and moving into Fort Walton Beach are going to be Atlanta, Georgia, coming in at number 1. Number 2 was Chicago, and number 3 was Washington. That isn't even the big story. The big story is that there were minimal numbers of people moving out of Fort Walton Beach in comparison to how many people are moving in. We're gonna pop up a visual right here to show you. So yes, we covered the places they're moving from and also to, but there are way more people moving into Fort Walton Beach than people moving out.
Now, another great thing if you are planning on moving into Fort Walton Beach is we want to know about the schools, right? So if we're talking about it being compared to Destin, we need to look at those schools. Both of these cities are located in Okaloosa County, which is rated an A according to niche.com. Good thing about that too is that Okaloosa County School District is rated number 4 in the state of Florida, an awesome school district, but you need to make sure you dive in a little bit deeper. We always talk about this where you need to go on the left-hand side of the screen on niche.com, look at that maps after you already are in Okaloosa County, and look at that map because majority of the schools in Fort Walton Beach are going to be B's, where if we compare over into Destin, majority of those are going to be A's.
To be more precise on how many of that kind of pans out, the 9 out of 16 of the schools that are taken into account for that grade is actually going to be between B and B+, whereas 7 out of the 16 are going to be A's. The 2 over in Destin that they're accounting for, the kind of the best schools, are going to be A's. And then if you go north of Destin, I thought it was really interesting, over by that Lake Lorraine area, it's actually 8 out of 8 are all A's and above.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Out of all the surrounding cities, the cities that are closest together, you know, not including Niceville and all of that, they are going to be the lower rating schools in Fort Walton in comparison to its surrounding cities.
The 5th thing that we're going to be talking about is that development, and can Fort Walton Beach develop in a way to make it more like Destin? It's funny because when we compared it to Navarre Beach, you guys said, no, there's no way, there's not enough land mass there. If we were compared to Navarre, completely different story. But we're talking about Fort Walton Beach in this video right here. So what is that land mass when we're talking about Fort Walton Beach? Looking at 7.64 square miles in Fort Walton Beach and 7.49 square miles over in Destin. So it's actually just a little bit bigger over in Fort Walton Beach. And I actually didn't really think, I mean, if you're looking at a map, it looks like Fort Walton Beach is a little bit smaller than Destin, but that's not the case when we do look at the stats.
Okay, one of the main things that we look at when we're making an opinion, because guys, this is all based on opinion on whether or not we think it's going to be like the next Destin. One of the things that we look at always is development. Now, every county and every city has a very unique way or their own way on how they're communicating with the public on what development looks like. I was able to find a good list though. The good thing about Fort Walton Beach is it does have a plan, a planning zone map that will show what its plans was for 2019 all the way to 2029. And then it does have, it's not the best, but it does have, you got to get a map up there, Fort Walton Beach. but it does have a good list of some of the things that are under review or proposed as far as development goes. I'm not going to go through every single one, but I do think it's important to understand the trends when evaluating a city. And now, because I can't remember all this, I'm going to have my handy notebook with you, but I just want to show you the trend overall. I'll also tell you a little bit about what I had to learn as far as some of the abbreviations so that you can kind of understand the story that so far the city is telling. So out of the 35 different things that are proposed or under review, 11 of them are actually from January 2024 and to present time, which what are we in? We are in
March.
April.
April. Oh, you said April.
Oh, April.
2024.
Okay, so 11 out of 35 are already under review for 2024. I'm not going to cover anything previous to that, but I do want to tell the story of what the 11 are. Okay, one of the proposed plans was a rezoning. No big deal. That doesn't mean too much to us yet. One of them is a major plat, which when I looked it up, that is going to be 4 units or less that don't change the structure of any sidewalks or streets or anything like that. So again, just maybe a small fourplex or something like that. I did see 3 EDOs, which are like workplace development. So that shows more workplaces coming in, which obviously will help drive some of the economy in Fort Walton Beach. I saw 1 PUD, which is planned unit development. Typically in this type of zoning, they're going to be counting on your townhouse and condos. So not a ton of townhouse condos planned in for 2024 as of yet. And then I did see 2 MDOs. So this is going to be 20 single family homes or more. That will show 2 separate developments that we know as of yet that has reviews in place for 2024. And then 4 variances. This is something I had to look up myself, like what is a variance? This is typically when the owner of the space is putting in for a variance or a change of how that is being used. That is usually a good understanding that people are buying up land and then trying to use that for a different space. So if it was zoned for, single family and then they want to zone it for something else and they want to change how that land use is, that is good signs though of growth. People might, convert homes into businesses or homes into restaurants or, different areas of land into, better use for the city. So that's intriguing. It doesn't tell us too much, but it does have locations if you want to look up any of these plans. I actually wanted to throw a website in here for you guys. It's on fwb.org/278/projects. It goes into the exact location of all of these. All in all, what I'm saying with all of these big words is really that we are still seeing development in Fort Walton Beach, which when we were talking about it, we weren't sure there was that much space to develop, but we are seeing people change zoning, we're seeing variances, we are still seeing single family and some townhouse and condos. So I do think overall Fort Walton does have a big plan on trying to make it better, including a big renovation to downtown that everyone's following. There's no set plans, but there is a lot of articles and a lot of people talking about how they're going to be changing downtown for this kind of new center type living.
All right, now we've come to that time, whether or not we personally think that Fort Walton Beach is going to be the next Destin. I am going to say a solid no. Biggest reason why is Destin is on the Gulf, guys. Fort Walton Beach is not. You have to go out to Okaloosa Island in order to be on the Gulf. Because of that, I do not think that it'll attract the same tourists as Destin does.
Okay, do I think? I think it's also a no. I will say that I think they're still trying to grow, and I see the growth. I can tell in the development. We are seeing a lot of still touristy, hotels along the Sound.
Yep.
I think Fort Walton Beach is still very special, but I think it's very different than Destin, and I think that might be something Fort Walton Beach takes pride in comparing the 2 cities.
All right, thank you so much for watching, guys. We appreciate it. If you are planning on calling the Emerald Coast your next home, make sure you give us a call or text at that phone number right below. Right below it there, we have assembled the best team of realtors to help you out with all your real estate needs.
And if you're not ready to purchase, no worries, but hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and also hit the notification bell so you're notified every single time we cover a new city.
Until next time, we love ya. Bye.
We have a license of team...
0.3, right? Yeah.
It's a 100.2, not 102.
Okay.